"My body's too big, I'm not breeding material," said the 73 woman, but he got her pregnant. She was born taller than most children her age, and that was just the beginning of a life that would never feel normal in the way most people experience it. From the earliest moments, her height made her stand out, even in the crowded classroom where every child tried to blend in. By the age of 10, she had already surpassed many of her teachers in stature. Kids stared, whispered, and sometimes laughed. She learned quickly that being different came with its own kind of attention, one that was never entirely comfortable. Her family loved her, of course. They celebrated her milestones and cheered her on when she achieved something remarkable. But even in a home full of love, she sometimes felt a quiet isolation. She wasn't like other girls in the neighborhood. While they played with dolls and wore pretty dresses, she often felt awkward in her own skin, wishing she could shrink just enough to feel ordinary. The world had a way of constantly reminding her that she was not like everyone else. School was a mixture of fascination and cruelty. Teachers sometimes commented on her height in ways that made her self-conscious. Classmates would make offhand jokes, call her names, or ask questions that felt invasive. "Can you even fit in a car?" Or "Do you play basketball?" became questions she answered hundreds of times, though she did not always play the sport. Every day, she navigated the hallways carefully, avoiding the curious eyes of those who did not understand that her height was just a part of her, not a statement about her abilities or personality. Even when she made friends, there was a subtle distance. Children are naturally curious, but their curiosity often translated into teasing or treating her as other. She learned to laugh along sometimes, to brush off comments with a smile, even when they hurt. Deep inside, she carried a growing awareness that her body, as big and powerful as it was, made her feel unworthy in ways that were hard to explain. She began to associate herself with words like too much or intimidating, and she wondered if anyone could ever see her as simply a girl, not a spectacle. Teenage years brought new challenges. While her peers worried about makeup, dates, and high school drama, she faced a different kind of insecurity. Her body, so different from the slender norms around her, became the center of her worries. Mirrors were both friend and enemy. She admired her height, understanding the uniqueness it gave her, but she also feared the way society judged women like her. She often whispered to herself, "I'm too big. Who would ever want someone like me?" These thoughts were private, but they shaped her worldview, making her cautious and protective of her heart. Social interactions were complicated. Boys sometimes looked at her with curiosity rather than interest, treating her more like a curiosity than a potential partner. Invitations to dances or dates were rare, and when they happened, she often declined, fearing embarrassment or rejection. The idea of romance felt foreign, almost impossible. She built walls around herself, convincing herself that she was not breeding material, repeating the phrase silently whenever someone showed interest. It became a mantra of self-preservation, a way to protect herself from the hurt she expected to come. Despite these challenges, she was determined to succeed in other areas of life. Schoolwork, hobbies, and personal projects became refuges where her height did not matter. She excelled academically and discovered talents that made her feel accomplished and valued. Her height, once a source of insecurity, became a tool she learned to embrace in certain spaces. For example, she could reach places others could not, and she moved with a presence that drew attention for reasons beyond appearance. Slowly, she began to understand that her body was not just an obstacle. It could be an advantage if she learned to navigate the world carefully. Even so, loneliness lingered. She watched her friends experience their first crushes, their first dates, and their first relationships, and she wondered if her size would always keep her on the outside. Nights were often filled with quiet reflection, as she lay awake thinking about what life would hold for someone like her. She longed for intimacy, for love that was unconditional, yet she could not shake the fear that her body made her unworthy of it. This internal struggle became a constant companion, shaping her thoughts and decisions in ways that only she fully understood. Family moments offered comfort, but they could not completely shield her from the outside world. Family members encouraged her to be proud of her uniqueness, to stand tall and embrace the extraordinary body she had been given. Yet, they also recognized the subtle pain in her eyes, the quiet moments when she doubted herself. Her parents would remind her that beauty and worth were not defined by size or societal norms, but words, no matter how loving, could only go so far in soothing the insecurities that had been growing since childhood. One of the hardest parts was learning to navigate public spaces. Everyday activities, shopping, going to the movies, or even sitting in a restaurant, felt like constant reminders of her difference. Chairs were often too small, doorways felt low, and she had to duck or adjust in ways that made her feel conspicuous. Strangers would comment, sometimes with genuine awe, sometimes with awkward humor. While she tried to respond with grace, it was exhausting to always be aware of her body, to constantly measure how others perceived her. Despite these challenges, she developed a quiet resilience. She learned to laugh at awkward situations, to correct misconceptions with patience, and to assert herself when necessary. She began to see that the world's expectations did not define her value. Over time, she discovered that confidence was not about fitting in, but about embracing herself fully, flaws and all. This resilience became a cornerstone of her identity, preparing her for the complexities of adult life, where relationships and self-acceptance would present even greater challenges. Through all of this, she held onto a sense of hope. Somewhere deep inside, she believed that there might be someone who could see beyond her height, who could appreciate her personality, her humor, and her heart. She dreamed quietly, sometimes with skepticism, about love that was not defined by societal norms. While she kept her guard up, the idea of finding someone who valued her for who she truly was never fully left her. By the time she reached adulthood, she had grown not just in height but in self-awareness. She understood her insecurities and had learned to navigate them, even if they still lingered. She knew the world would continue to judge, to question, and to be curious, but she was determined not to let that define her. Every step she took was a testament to her strength, her courage, and her refusal to let her body limit her potential. Her life up to that point had been a delicate balance of self-protection, quiet rebellion against societal expectations, and hope for acceptance. She had learned to value her mind and her heart, even if the world seemed fixated on her physical appearance. And little did she know, her journey was about to take an unexpected turn, one that would challenge every assumption she had ever made about herself and about love. Because while she had always believed she was not breeding material, life had a plan that would test her beliefs, push her boundaries, and ultimately reveal that love and family were not defined by size, but by connection, trust, and courage. As she moved into early adulthood, life continued to present challenges, but also new opportunities. College brought her into a world that was bigger, more diverse, and filled with people who didn't know her history. For the first time, she was surrounded by strangers who had no preconceived notions about her height, her body, or her personality. It was both liberating and nerve-wracking. She quickly realized that while she could try to blend in, her 73 frame still made her stand out wherever she went. People would stare, some with curiosity, others with awe, and she had become adept at navigating those reactions with quiet grace. It was during her second semester that she met him. He was different from the others she had encountered. While some people were either intimidated or overly fascinated by her height, he seemed completely unfazed. He treated her like a regular person, talking to her as if her body were not the defining feature of her existence. At first, she was skeptical. She had spent so many years believing that no one could look past her appearance that she could not imagine someone genuinely seeing her for who she was. Yet, there he was, smiling, asking thoughtful questions, and listening to her answers with genuine interest. Their initial conversations were casual, revolving around classes, shared interests, and mutual friends. She noticed that he had a way of making her feel comfortable without trying too hard, and that was unusual for her. People often tried to impress her or comment on her height, but he didn't. He valued her opinions, laughed at her jokes, and encouraged her ideas. Slowly, she began to lower her guard, intrigued by someone who seemed to genuinely care about her mind and personality rather than her appearance. Despite her curiosity, she remained cautious. Years of judgment and isolation had left their mark, and she was not ready to open her heart fully. In her mind, she repeated the mantra she had used since adolescence: "I'm not breeding material. No one would want someone like me." The thought of a romantic relationship felt distant, almost impossible, but something about the way he treated her sparked a tiny flame of hope, one she tried to ignore but couldn't quite extinguish. Over time, their friendship grew. They spent hours discussing books, music, and life goals. He would share stories about his family, childhood experiences, and dreams, and she would listen, fascinated by his perspective. She found herself laughing more than she had in years, feeling lighter in his presence. For the first time, she realized that it was possible to be around someone without feeling scrutinized or judged for simply existing. This realization was profound, almost revolutionary, considering her lifetime of insecurities. Even as their friendship blossomed, she maintained her boundaries. She was clear with herself and with him that her body, her height, and her fears about intimacy were not things she could ignore. She often expressed her doubts and insecurities, sometimes joking about being too big or unfit for a normal relationship. He never dismissed her feelings. Instead, he listened patiently and reassured her that she was enough just as she was. His consistency and respect slowly began to chip away at the walls she had built over the years. One evening, as they walked through the campus park, the air was filled with the scent of blooming flowers and the soft sounds of students chatting in the distance. She talked about her childhood, the struggles she had faced, and the way the world had always made her feel different. She expected him to be surprised or uncomfortable, but he simply listened, nodding and offering words of understanding. "Your body doesn't define your worth," he said quietly, "and it certainly doesn't define who you can be with or what kind of love you deserve." His words were simple, yet they carried a weight she had never heard before. For the first time, she began to imagine what it would be like to be with someone who truly understood her. She thought about holding hands, sharing meals, and spending quiet evenings together without the constant fear of judgment. It was a new and exhilarating feeling, one that both thrilled and terrified her. She had lived so long believing that no one could love her as she was, but now, with him, the impossible suddenly seemed possible. As weeks turned into months, their bond deepened. They shared more personal experiences, dreams, and fears. She revealed her thoughts about never being breeding material, a phrase she had repeated to herself for years. He never laughed or judged. Instead, he reassured her that her fears were valid but not truths that needed to limit her life. His patience and understanding made her feel safe, something she had rarely felt in romantic contexts before. Slowly, the idea of intimacy became less intimidating. She began to see that love was not about size, height, or appearance. It was about connection, trust, and respect. There were moments of hesitation, of course. Sometimes she would pull back, afraid of getting too close, worried that her body would somehow become an obstacle. Other times, she would test him, making small jokes or expressing doubts to see if he would truly accept her. Each time, he responded with patience, humor, and reassurance. Over time, she realized that his care was consistent, not conditional, and that changed everything. Social life also played a role in their growing closeness. Group activities, campus events, and shared outings provided opportunities for them to see each other in different settings. He introduced her to his friends, and she discovered that being around people who genuinely liked her for who she was, not just her height, was freeing. She started to let go of some of the tension she carried, laughing more freely and feeling more relaxed in her own skin. Academically and personally, she was thriving, but emotionally, she felt a new vulnerability. She realized that she had allowed herself to hope for something she had never dared to expect. This hope brought excitement but also fear. She had to confront a lifetime of insecurities, learning to trust someone with her heart after years of shielding it. Each conversation, each shared moment, and each gesture of kindness from him chipped away at her doubts. By the end of the semester, their friendship had quietly transformed into something more profound. Neither had spoken of love explicitly, but the signs were clear. They cared deeply for each other, relied on each other for support, and found comfort in each other's presence. She began to dream, tentatively, about the possibility of a life where she could be loved fully and without judgment. It was a fragile dream, easily shattered by past fears, but it was also the first time she allowed herself to imagine happiness in a romantic sense. As she walked across campus one afternoon, sunlight casting long shadows on the paths, she reflected on the months that had passed. She remembered the teasing, the stares, and the constant internal dialogue about her body and worth. She realized that for the first time, she had met someone who made her feel seen, not for her height, not for her size, but for who she truly was. That realization filled her with a sense of cautious optimism. It wasn't an immediate transformation. She still carried her insecurities, and the phrase, "I'm not breeding material," lingered in the back of her mind. But now it competed with another thought, one she hadn't experienced in years. Maybe she could be loved. Maybe she could have a relationship that worked. Maybe her body wasn't a barrier to happiness. It was a delicate balance, a dance between fear and hope, but it was a balance she was beginning to master. By the time the semester ended, they had built a strong foundation of trust, respect, and emotional intimacy. She no longer felt entirely alone in her experiences or her struggles. For the first time, she could imagine a future that included love, support, and acceptance. And while she still doubted her status as breeding material, a small part of her heart whispered that life might have more in store for her than she had ever dared to dream. Little did she know that the next chapter of her life would challenge every assumption she had ever made about herself. The man who had patiently walked beside her, seen her for who she truly was, and reassured her that she was enough, would soon play a role in a life-changing development, one that would test her fears, deepen her understanding of love, and ultimately reveal that her body and her height were never obstacles to happiness. For now, though, she savored the feeling of being understood, valued, and accepted. It was a small victory in a life that had often been defined by struggle, and it was the beginning of something she had never truly allowed herself to hope for. The possibility of love, not despite her body, but alongside it. Over time, their friendship quietly transformed into something deeper, though neither of them rushed to define it. It was a slow, natural progression, built on trust, shared laughter, and countless small moments that added up to a profound connection. She found herself thinking about him often, noticing the way his presence made her feel lighter, more at ease, and surprisingly hopeful about the possibility of love. The walls she had built around her heart for so many years began to soften, brick by brick, though she still kept a cautious eye on her emotions. She still had moments of self-doubt. Late at night, she would lie awake, thinking about her height and the size of her body. Despite all the reassurance he gave her, she sometimes whispered to herself that she was too big to be desirable, that she wasn't breeding material. and that perhaps she would always be too different for a normal romantic relationship. The doubts didn't vanish completely, but they became less powerful over time as she experienced his patience and genuine care. One of the turning points came one chilly evening when they attended a small campus event together. As they walked side by side, talking and laughing, she noticed how natural it felt to be with him. No one stared or made jokes. They were simply two people enjoying each other's company. She realized that she had grown to trust him more than anyone she had ever known, and the thought was both thrilling and terrifying. She was beginning to imagine a life where love didn't come with fear or judgment, a life where she could be accepted fully for who she was. He began to notice the little ways she hesitated in certain situations, the subtle body language that spoke of lingering insecurities. Instead of commenting or trying to fix her, he offered reassurance through simple gestures, a hand on her back, a gentle smile, and words of encouragement. "You don't have to worry about being perfect," he said one day while they were studying together at the library. "I like you for who you are, and that's enough." Those words struck a chord deep inside her. She had spent so many years doubting her worth, yet here was someone reminding her, patiently and sincerely, that she was valuable and loved. Their conversations began to grow more personal. She shared childhood stories, the teasing she had endured, and the way society had made her feel different. She explained how her height and body had shaped her self-image, and why she often felt unworthy of love. He listened without interruption, asking thoughtful questions and validating her feelings. His attentiveness made her feel seen in a way she had never experienced before, and she began to realize that she could trust him with her vulnerabilities. Despite the growing closeness, she maintained her caution. She wasn't ready to let go completely, still clinging to the mantra she had repeated for years. "I'm not breeding material." She worried that intimacy might highlight her differences, that her height or her size could somehow make her unlovable in a deeper sense. She tested him subtly, making jokes about her body or expressing doubts about relationships, watching carefully to see how he would respond. Each time, he responded with understanding, humor, and reassurance, never making her feel inadequate. One evening, while they were sharing a quiet walk under the stars, she opened up more than she had before. She spoke about her fears, her insecurities, and the loneliness that had often accompanied her since childhood. "Sometimes I wonder if anyone could ever truly love someone like me," she admitted softly. He stopped walking and looked at her, his eyes steady and kind. "I do," he said simply. "I see you, really see you, and I care about you for everything you are. Not your height, not your size, not anything else, just you." Those words were powerful. They lingered in her mind long after that night, replaying over and over. For the first time, she allowed herself to consider the possibility that she could be loved fully and without judgment. It was a fragile hope, still mingled with fear, but it felt like a seed had been planted in her heart. Slowly, she began to imagine what it might be like to share a life with someone who accepted her completely, someone who valued her personality, her kindness, and her heart above all else. As the weeks went by, their bond deepened. They began spending more time together outside of classes, studying, exploring the city, and even cooking simple meals in their dorms or apartments. Each moment brought them closer, and she discovered that she genuinely enjoyed being around him in ways that went beyond friendship. She laughed more freely, shared more openly, and allowed herself to feel vulnerable without fear of judgment. For the first time, she felt what it was like to be seen and appreciated for who she truly was. There were moments of hesitation, of course. She occasionally pulled back, reminded of the years she had spent believing she was unworthy. She questioned whether she could ever be fully accepted, whether her body would always be a barrier, and whether she was ready to open herself up completely. But each time she expressed these fears, he met them with patience and understanding. He never pressured her, never dismissed her feelings, and never made her feel that her insecurities were a problem. His consistent support made it easier for her to trust, to believe, and to imagine a future that included love. Their connection began to include small gestures of intimacy, holding hands, sharing hugs, and sitting close together during long conversations. These moments, though simple, carried great meaning. She noticed that she no longer felt awkward or self-conscious in his presence. Instead, she began to relax, to let her guard down, and to experience the joy of being physically close to someone who valued her. She realized that intimacy didn't have to be intimidating or shameful. It could be comforting, affirming, and full of love. He also encouraged her to embrace her uniqueness rather than hide it. He would point out the ways her height gave her advantages, whether it was reaching high shelves, seeing over crowds, or simply standing out with a presence that was impossible to ignore. Slowly, she began to shift her perspective, recognizing that her body was not a limitation, but a part of what made her extraordinary. She started to see herself in a new light, not just as someone different, but as someone remarkable in ways that few people could ever understand. One afternoon, they spent hours in the park, talking about their dreams for the future. She shared her fears about relationships, marriage, and family, confessing her doubts about ever being breeding material. He listened patiently, then gently reminded her that love and family were not defined by size or societal expectations. Life isn't about fitting a mold, he said. It's about finding someone who values you for who you are and building something together. You are more than enough, and together we could be amazing. His words resonated deeply. For the first time, she began to imagine a future that included romance, partnership, and family. A future she had once believed was impossible. She started to believe that she could be loved for who she was, that her height and body did not disqualify her from happiness. The idea of a life with him became less abstract and more tangible, filling her with a sense of hope and anticipation she had not felt in years. By the end of the semester, it was clear that something significant had shifted between them. Their relationship was no longer just friendship. It was built on a foundation of trust, emotional intimacy, and mutual respect. She found herself thinking about him constantly, anticipating their next conversation and looking forward to the moments they would share. While fear and doubt still lingered in the background, they were now accompanied by excitement, hope, and the possibility of love. She realized that her journey of self-acceptance had only just begun. Her experiences with him taught her that vulnerability could be met with care, that intimacy could be comforting rather than intimidating, and that love was not about meeting societal standards, but about connection and mutual respect. She felt herself growing stronger, not just emotionally, but in her understanding of what it meant to be truly seen and valued. Little did she know, their bond would soon be tested in ways neither of them could have predicted. Life was preparing to challenge her beliefs, push the boundaries of her fears, and ultimately show her that love, trust, and family were not limited by physical appearance. But for now, she savored the quiet joy of connection, the thrill of growing closeness, and the first glimmers of hope that life might hold something wonderful for her. And so, as the semester ended and summer approached, she found herself standing at the edge of possibility, hopeful, cautious, yet ready to embrace the unexpected journey ahead. For the first time in a long time, she believed that love could find her, even if she had once thought it impossible. Life had been moving forward steadily, their connection growing deeper with each passing day. She had begun to allow herself to imagine a future she had never thought possible, a life where love existed not despite her height and body, but alongside them. He had become a constant in her life, a presence she could rely on, someone who listened, understood, and genuinely cared. It was a level of trust she had never experienced before, and it made her feel both exhilarated and vulnerable. Then came the moment that changed everything. It was a quiet morning when she realized something unusual. Her body felt different. At first, she dismissed it as stress or a minor change in routine, but as the days passed, the feeling persisted. She became increasingly aware of subtle signs that hinted at a possibility she had never fully allowed herself to consider. Anxiety and excitement mingled in her chest, each emotion tugging at her in different directions. She felt a wave of fear, thinking about all the things she had once believed: her height, her body, her perceived unfitness for relationships or motherhood. Yet beneath the fear, there was also a small spark of anticipation, a hope that life might be about to surprise her. When the test confirmed her pregnancy, the world seemed to stop for a moment. She stared at the result, heart pounding, mind racing with questions. How could this be real? Could she really be bringing a new life into the world? Was she ready? Would he be ready? Memories of her childhood insecurities, her fears about not being breeding material, and her lifelong doubts about love and acceptance flooded her mind. She felt a mixture of disbelief, worry, and an unexpected joy that she had never allowed herself to feel before. When she told him, she braced herself for judgment, discomfort, or doubt. But he didn't hesitate. He took her hands in his, looked into her eyes, and said, "We will face this together. This changes nothing about how I see you or how much I care for you. We are in this together and we will make it work." His words carried a certainty and warmth that calmed the storm inside her. For the first time in her life, she felt fully supported, completely accepted, and deeply loved, despite all her fears and insecurities. The next few days were filled with a whirlwind of emotions. She oscillated between excitement and fear, imagining a future as a mother while still confronting the lifelong doubts that her body or size made her unfit for such a role. She remembered all the times she had avoided relationships, thinking she was too big, too different, or not meant to be loved in that way. And yet, here she was, about to bring life into the world with someone who loved her unconditionally. It was a contradiction that was hard to reconcile, but it also filled her with a sense of wonder and possibility she had never experienced before. Friends and family were supportive, though she knew they were also cautious. Her parents were proud but gently reminded her of the challenges ahead. "You are strong and capable," her mother said, "and you are not alone in this. We will help you every step of the way." Their reassurance, combined with the unwavering support of her partner, gave her the strength to face the new chapter in her life. She began to understand that while fear and uncertainty were natural, they did not have to define her experience. Pregnancy brought its own challenges. Her body, already extraordinary in size and height, went through changes that sometimes made her feel awkward or self-conscious. She worried about how others might react, and whether she could navigate the world as both a tall woman and a mother-to-be. Yet, each time fear surfaced, she reminded herself that she was not alone. He was there beside her, ready to help, to listen, and to face every obstacle together. His constant presence gave her courage and reminded her that love and partnership could overcome even the most daunting challenges. She also experienced moments of quiet joy. Feeling the baby move for the first time was a profound, almost magical experience. She marveled at the life growing inside her, feeling an overwhelming sense of connection and responsibility. Her partner shared in these moments, placing his hand on her belly, whispering words of love and encouragement. Together, they imagined the future, naming possibilities, thinking about nurseries, and dreaming of the life they would create. These moments were filled with hope, bonding, and the reassurance that they were building something extraordinary together. Despite the excitement, she still faced inner struggles. There were days when doubts returned, when old fears whispered that she was too big, too different, too unusual to succeed in motherhood. She worried about society's judgment, wondering if strangers or acquaintances would see her and think she couldn't manage or wouldn't be a good mother. These thoughts were persistent, but she learned to confront them with the same resilience that had carried her through childhood and adolescence. Each challenge became an opportunity to remind herself of her strength and the unwavering support she had from the man who loved her. They began preparing for the baby together, tackling tasks she had never imagined she could do with confidence. Shopping for baby clothes, assembling furniture, and attending prenatal classes became shared adventures. Each step strengthened their bond and reinforced the reality that they were capable of building a family together. She discovered a new side of herself, one that was nurturing, patient, and capable of facing fears head-on. Her body, which she had once seen as an obstacle, became a vessel of creation, a source of pride and amazement rather than insecurity. In these months, she reflected deeply on her journey. She remembered the countless times she had felt isolated or different, the moments she had doubted her worth, and the years she had told herself she was not breeding material. And now, in the face of an unexpected pregnancy, she realized that life had a way of proving her wrong. Love, support, and family were not defined by size or societal expectations. They were defined by care, commitment, and connection. She felt a profound sense of gratitude for the man who had believed in her, for the life growing inside her, and for the opportunity to redefine what she had once believed about herself. As the pregnancy progressed, she began to share her experiences with close friends and family. Their encouragement reinforced the reality that she was not alone and that she had the support necessary to thrive. She also connected with other women who had experienced similar fears and challenges, finding solidarity in shared experiences. These connections reminded her that while her height and size were unique, the emotions she felt, fear, doubt, hope, and joy, were universal. She began to embrace her pregnancy not as a burden but as a gift, an opportunity to grow in ways she had never imagined. Throughout it all, her partner remained steadfast. He attended appointments, read parenting books, and supported her through every emotional and physical change. He reassured her when she doubted herself, celebrated small milestones, and reminded her daily that she was strong, capable, and loved. His unwavering commitment gave her the courage to embrace the pregnancy fully, to confront fears she had carried for years, and to envision a future filled with love, partnership, and family. By the time she entered the later stages of pregnancy, she had transformed in ways she could hardly have imagined. The woman who had once believed she was too big, too different, and unfit for love now radiated confidence, strength, and joy. She had faced her insecurities, embraced her body, and learned that life could offer unexpected blessings even when fears loomed large. The journey had not been easy, but it had taught her resilience, patience, and the true meaning of partnership. As she prepared for the arrival of her child, she reflected on the lessons she had learned. Her body, once a source of doubt and insecurity, had become a symbol of life, strength, and possibility. The fears that had haunted her for decades no longer held the same power. She realized that love, family, and self-worth were not dictated by appearance or societal standards. They were built through connection, trust, and courage. She felt ready to step into motherhood with hope, pride, and a deep sense of purpose. And so, as she looked toward the future, she understood that life had proven her wrong in the most beautiful way. She was not only capable of love and intimacy, but also of creating and nurturing new life. The man who had seen her for who she truly was had shared this journey with her, reinforcing the truth that support, understanding, and genuine care could overcome any fear. Together, they awaited the arrival of their child, ready to embrace the challenges and joys that lay ahead, and fully aware that their love and commitment would guide them through every step. The months passed quickly, and she found herself preparing for the most important day of her life, the birth of her child. Each day brought a mix of anticipation, excitement, and a quiet reflection on how far she had come. She remembered the years of self-doubt, the days she had felt unworthy of love, and the countless times she had whispered to herself that she was not breeding material. Now, those words felt like remnants of a past life, echoes of a mindset she had long since left behind. She had grown stronger, more confident, and more connected to the life she was about to bring into the world. Her partner remained by her side through every step of the journey. He helped with preparations, attending appointments, reading up on childbirth, and making sure she felt supported and cared for. Their bond, already strong, had deepened in ways she had never imagined. She realized that the love they shared was not only about romance, but also about partnership, trust, and unwavering commitment. Together, they created a home filled with warmth, laughter, and hope, a place where their child would be welcomed with love from the very first moment. As the day of the birth approached, she reflected on her journey of self-acceptance. She had faced a lifetime of challenges, growing up feeling different and sometimes unworthy. She had confronted her insecurities, learned to trust, and embrace the possibility of love. Her body, which she had once viewed as a limitation, had become a source of pride, a vessel capable of bringing new life into the world. Every fear she had once carried was replaced with determination, courage, and a sense of empowerment she had never felt before. When the moment finally arrived, it was both intense and miraculous. Labor was challenging, testing her strength, resilience, and patience. But through every contraction, every moment of discomfort, she felt the presence of her partner beside her, offering words of encouragement, holding her hand, and reminding her of her strength. His support gave her confidence and calm, and together, they faced the experience as a team. She realized in that moment that love was not just an emotion. It was action, presence, and unwavering support in both joyful and difficult times. Finally, after hours of effort and anticipation, she held her child in her arms for the first time. The moment was overwhelming, filled with tears, laughter, and a deep sense of awe. Looking down at the tiny life she had helped create, she felt a connection so profound it was impossible to describe. All her fears about being too big or unfit melted away, replaced by a fierce, protective love. She understood in that instant that motherhood was not about size, shape, or appearance. It was about love, care, and devotion. She was capable, strong, and exactly the mother her child needed. Her partner stood beside her, equally moved, sharing in the wonder and joy of the moment. He whispered words of love and pride, reminding her that they had created something beautiful together. They held their child close, imagining the future and dreaming of all the milestones they would experience as a family. The room was filled with warmth, hope, and the realization that life had brought them together in the most unexpected but perfect way. In the weeks that followed, she embraced motherhood with a growing sense of confidence. She learned to navigate the challenges of caring for a newborn, discovering patience and resilience she had never fully recognized in herself. Every smile, every small milestone, every sound of her child's laughter reinforced the incredible journey she had taken to reach this point. Her body, which had once caused her doubt, had now fulfilled a miraculous purpose, and she felt proud, capable, and whole in a way she had never imagined. She also reflected on the journey of love that had brought her here. The man who had stood by her, seen her for who she truly was, and supported her through every fear had been an anchor in her life. Their relationship had grown into a true partnership, based on respect, trust, and unwavering care. She realized that love was not about perfection or fitting societal standards. It was about seeing someone's true worth, embracing them fully, and choosing to support and cherish them every day. Friends and family celebrated with them, offering support, encouragement, and love. Her parents expressed pride and joy, reminding her of her strength and resilience. Friends marveled at the transformation they had witnessed, noting how she had grown into a confident, loving mother while remaining uniquely herself. She realized that her journey was not just about motherhood or love. It was also about self-acceptance, courage, and the ability to embrace life fully despite past fears. Over time, she learned to appreciate her body in new ways. The strength and endurance required to carry a child, to navigate pregnancy and labor, and to care for a newborn reminded her of her resilience. She began to see her height and size not as obstacles, but as part of what made her extraordinary. Her body had been capable of challenges she had once thought impossible, and that realization brought a profound sense of gratitude and self-respect. As she and her partner settled into family life, she reflected on the lessons she had learned. She understood now that life's surprises often come in ways we cannot predict. The fears that once dominated her thoughts, about being unworthy of love, about her body, and about motherhood, had been proven wrong. Love and family were not limited by appearance. They were nurtured through connection, understanding, and commitment. She felt stronger, wiser, and more capable than ever before. She also realized that her journey could inspire others. Her story of overcoming insecurities, embracing love, and discovering the joy of motherhood was a testament to the power of resilience and hope. She began to share her experiences with friends and community, offering encouragement to those who struggled with self-doubt or feelings of inadequacy. She wanted others to know that differences, whether in appearance, size, or circumstances, did not define their ability to be loved or to create a family. Parenthood brought challenges, but each obstacle was met with teamwork, patience, and love. She learned to trust her instincts, to adapt, and to grow alongside her child. Every moment, from late-night feedings to first steps, became an opportunity to celebrate life and the extraordinary journey she had undertaken. She understood that love was not static. It was dynamic, evolving and strengthened through care, attention, and shared experiences. Looking back on her life, she marveled at the transformation she had undergone. The young girl who once felt isolated, insecure, and unworthy had become a confident woman, a loving partner, and a nurturing mother. She realized that her height and body, once sources of fear, had been part of the journey that led her to this place. They had shaped her resilience, her self-awareness, and her capacity to love fully. In the quiet moments, holding her child and watching her partner, she reflected on the words she had once repeated to herself. "I'm not breeding material." How wrong she had been. Life had shown her that love and family were not defined by appearances, but by heart, commitment, and the courage to embrace the unexpected. She felt grateful for the journey, for the lessons learned, and for the opportunity to experience love and motherhood in its fullest form. As time passed, she continued to grow into her new role. She celebrated small victories, cherished quiet family moments, and nurtured the bond between her child, her partner, and herself. Every day was a reminder that life could be beautiful in ways she had never imagined. She no longer measured herself by others' standards or feared being different. Instead, she embraced her uniqueness, her strength, and the love that had made everything possible. Her story became a testament to hope, resilience, and the power of genuine connection. It was a reminder that the fears we carry about ourselves are often not truths, but obstacles to be overcome. She had learned that love could be found in unexpected places, that support and patience could transform doubt into confidence, and that life's surprises could lead to the most incredible blessings. And so, with her child in her arms and the man she loved by her side, she looked toward the future with optimism, pride, and joy. The journey that had begun with self-doubt and insecurity had led her to a place of love, fulfillment, and self-acceptance. She had discovered that life's greatest treasures often come when we dare to hope, trust, and embrace the unknown. She had become a mother, a partner, and a woman who had learned to see her worth in ways that went far beyond what she had ever imagined. Her story ended not with perfection, but with growth, love, and the understanding that life is as extraordinary as we allow it to be. She had faced fear, embraced love, and welcomed a new life, proving to herself and to the world that being different was never a limitation. It was a gift.